Previously on Just BS Woodworking.
I start a job in approximately 4 weeks, which requires me to work from home. I'm required to have an office. I've never had an office before. This is currently my office.
So previously I built a drawer cabinet for the left side, a stand for the right side, and installed an ash countertop. All was going well, but I only have a desk. Until now. So what comes next? If you've watched my previous installments, you'll know that I've got grand ideas. Trouble is, I haven't got the skill set, the space, or the tools to actually make them happen. That's why I'm back on the floor like a peasant. And I gave my track saw an absolute flogging. I took 3 sheets of ply and cut them down into 380mm depth or width if you like, and that's what the basis of my shelving unit that's going to sit on top of my desk was going to be. I had to work on the garage floor, I had to work on the driveway, I had to work in the dining room. This was a beast of a project and I wasn't quite ready for how tricky I was going to find it. I am broken. And now, despite being hot and being sunny, it started raining. So I had to come back into the garage. And I haven't finished cutting all my plywood. And there's stuff everywhere. Stacks and stacks of stuff everywhere. Okay, these are all the uprights. I've got them all cut to the right depth and the right height. Fairly pleased with how it all went. It only took about an hour, but I've got 3 problems now. Problem number 1, the demented chicken is back and he's very loud. I apologise. Problem number 2, I'm really hot. It's 33 degrees. Problem number 3, I've done the calculations. I've got 1 full sheet of ply left and then some scraps. I think I can probably use the scraps to cobble together the insert shelves, the ones that will be on pins that I can adjust. Through my calculations, I've got enough ply to finish the chicken, to finish the shelves that are going to be fixed, providing I don't make a single wrong cut. Because that's never happened before on this channel. So hot. My next job was marking out the rebates where the shelves are going to slot into the vertical panels. Now I've got the luxury here of not needing to worry about any racking left to right. So as you're watching this, please just wait until the end to understand that no, this is not going to seem like the strongest structure, but the only way that I can see this needs to be strong is the weight on the shelves. The unit itself cannot rack left and right because the 2 vertical walls. It can't go down because it's sat on a solid ash worktop. I just need it to be structurally strong. Yes, it could rack if it had anywhere to rack to. It can't. So before you comment, I understand, I've thought all this through. That's a lie, I haven't. In my head it seems alright, so I'm just going with it. Sadly, I didn't have the choice of a router table for these rebates. That served me really well when I've built my cabinet drawers and the bathroom cabinet. But here, the rebate is in the middle of a huge length of wood and there was no safe way of doing it. So I've just clamped a piece of wood down and I'm just using a palm router with a pretty terrible bit, to be honest. So I just did really shallow passes, 1mm or 2mm at a time. And it actually worked pretty well. There was a little bit of chip out at the end, but nothing that a bit of filler and paint won't fix.
Snug as a bug in a rug.
After a bit of self-praise, which, as you know, I quite like to do, I then started getting pretty miserable. I am really struggling with space now. The house has gone from being a building site where I had room to knock wood together and glue up all over the place, but now we've got a nice floor and no space, and this is the only section of garage floor I could find. So I've decided to build the whole shelving unit as two separate entities, a left unit and a right unit. Hindsight, this was a great idea. Number one, because each unit was unreasonably heavy, and number two, well, I'll let you see later in the video. There was some sadness. So you remember how I said that as long as I didn't mess up any cuts, I'd be absolutely fine? Either this garage floor is not level at all, or I have messed up one cut, ruining most of a sheet of ply. This is sitting proud, and that one in that corner is sitting proud. Now that could either mean this garage floor is not level, or I've cut one of the lengths at an angle which ruins both sides of that cut. Panic over. Look at this. Garage floor is not level. I'm so hot. I was about to have a tantrum. Yay! The glue up on this should have been pretty simple, but it was actually really frustrating. I used a mixture of glue, clamps and screws to hold it all together. The screws going in from the side won't be seen because it's going to be butted up either to a wall or to the other half of the shelving cabinet. Now, why was it not simple? Because I just didn't have any room. I was on the floor, I knew the floor wasn't even, so I was trying my best to keep everything square, holding it in place with clamps until I got the screws in, banging my head on shelves above my head. It was not pleasant, it was red hot, but I got it done. Once I'd glued it all up, I made sure that everything was square and then just left it sat on the floor. I didn't really have any other choice here because I haven't got any kind of clamps that would hold it square. Right, it is very square. I've checked every possible angle. I've taken measurements from the corners. They're equal. The trick is going to be not to knock it, drop it, move it for a good few hours. I didn't overcomplicate things with the nailer strips. They are the offcuts of the ply I had left over from cutting up the shelves themselves. I used some pocket holes and some glue to hold them in place. Now I didn't do this as part of the original glue up because I wasn't working with anything square. I wanted to glue it up square and then adding these is going to keep it square when I move it. Now I was trying my best to plan ahead here, so this hole at the top is going to have some LED lighting threaded through it so that there's a continuous run all the way through. So I'm just using a Forstner bit to create that hole, and that way I can get it painted and you won't even notice it, it'll be invisible. So after using that smaller, simpler set of shelves to get my eye in, I moved on to the right hand side. Now this was infinitely more complicated. I wanted a big alcove for my screen and my laptop to sit in, I wanted some smaller cubby holes for paperwork for my new job, and then I wanted some open shelves at the top. This meant that I had to have rebated shelves in all kinds of different positions, and I had to get my measurements absolutely spot on if I wanted this thing to be square. At this stage of the project I definitely got my eye in on how to do these rebates with the palm router. Using some accurate measurements and then some tape on rulers so that I didn't forget anything, I pretty much got it down to a T. I used the smaller housing for the palm router and that allowed me to adjust it a millimetre at a time, which pretty much got rid of all the tear out I was experiencing. And then I just kind of cracked on and got everything in the right place, ready for the glue up. This one went a lot smoother despite being more complicated, purely because I got all my mistakes out of the way on the first one. The glue up, however, was incredibly frustrating, to the point where I didn't even have room to position the camera to record it, so I got the bulk of it all glued up and then it was just time to attach the nailer strips. Now I'll explain in a minute a couple of other things that I've added, but the nailer strips were done in exactly the same way, one across the top and then one across the bottom shelf. Probably unnecessary, but it did help more with the racking whilst carrying the thing than it did installing. Just helps to keep everything strong. I used a mixture of glue, pocket hole screws and screws in from the left and right to keep everything together. So I think this is a classic example of biting off more than you can chew. This project is far too big for the limited space I've got. And I'm working with such big sheets that even though track saw is king and I'll die on that hill, using a track saw on the driveway without the clamps because you can't get anything under it means that some things aren't accurate. But I've tried to line everything up on the front, which is the underside that you can't see. But if you feel down, all those transition lines are very smooth. But it has left me with little 2mm gaps at the back. But that is going to be against the wall, and the wall's not straight anyway, so a few picture frames will hide that. But I've not enjoyed working on the floor. I need a bigger workshop. It's the only way to fix this. Anyway, I'm going to leave this to dry. I've already got a layer of paint on the other one you saw earlier in the video. Then that can go up, and I am praying that I have got my measurements right and that this fits next to it. Because if it doesn't, I'm going to cry. Broken. It's funny, isn't it? Because looking at this video now and doing the voiceover, I can't remember that feeling of being broken. I'm sat here in my office recording this voiceover, looking around what I've created, and I've only got positive things in my mind about it. But after seeing it on film, yeah, I was broken. Now, I didn't film me doing this, but what you're seeing on screen now is a piece of ply, a thin piece turned on its end that runs along the front of the shelf. It's going to be covered by the face frame, but that 120 centimetre span above my computer screen I just thought was a bit much without anything to support at the front. So I actually rebaited that in, and it seems to have worked really well. Drilled some more holes that are going to be hidden by the face frame for my lighting and for my wiring, trying to remember all the things I need before I paint this. I don't want to be coming back after it's painted and making a mess of it. Now this is the front side that you're seeing, and I'm just using a multi-tool just to cut a little notch. I've just got to fit some 12-volt wiring that runs up behind the face frame to the LED lighting above. I've got no power access at the top, so I've just got to figure out how to hide wiring, and this was the most simple solution I could think of.
I love painting upside down. I love painting, and I look like a clown.
Fortunately, I was able to get enough room to put the cabinet on its back and not have to paint upside down, because that was painful and I got paint in my eyes. But this was a long old process. I'm using wood and metal paint from B&Q, and it's good stuff, but after you've put it on, you've got to then make sure every brush mark goes with the grain. Now, installing that first set of shelving was a breeze. It was light enough that I could pick it up on my own. For the second, I had to recruit the help of the wife. I could lift this up, but I could not see at all what I was doing. So I enlisted her to give me directions, which she loves doing, and then eventually heaved it up onto the top. There was only one problem. It didn't fit. Just catching on that.
Yeah.
The roof dips down. That's why it's gone in so far. My first go-to tool was, of course, the hammer, and I hammered it, but it didn't fit. Still. Next up was a combination of both leaning and hammering, but it didn't fit. Still. Here you can see just how much that wall comes in at the top. Everything else was square. I put a level on it. Now the next hour or so wasn't recorded. Well, it was, but there was too much beeping by the time I'd edited all the swearing out of the video. I brought the sander inside. I even reduced myself to using the belt sander inside. Despite having the hoover attached, there was dust all over my new desk, but I basically just took away the rough corners and just sanded back the first veneer of ply and just prayed that it would fit. And what do you know? It did. That was all it took. It was just that first veneer on the ply that needed to come off. What I'd done is I'd taken my measurements from the bottom of the wall and didn't account at all for the fact that the plaster caves in near the top quite considerably. As you can see that there's a gap at the bottom, but at the top it is against the wall. Bit of hammering with some blocks and everything lined up a dream. As you can well imagine, I was on cloud 9. Everything was starting to come into place. It all looked fantastic and I was screwing everything together and fixing it, and then I spotted something. I forgot my cable hole on the other wall. I've just realised there needs to be a cable hole, which you can see here, but there's not one on that side. I thought I'd got everything. I've got my lighting holes all at the top, I'd pre-drilled all the screws, but no, there is too much going on in this project for my brain and I lack the experience. So I'm going to call this video a wrap for a couple of reasons. It seems like a good place to end it. The main structure is in and my back is pretty much broken. Now, getting this in kind of marks the final big parts of it, and I thought I'm almost finished until I started totting up what I need to do still. I've still got to do face frames. I've still got to install the lighting. I've got to install the shelves that are going to go in the different sections. They're going to be natural wood sitting on shelf pins. I've got to do the skirts. And then I've got to install all of the computer and wiring and... Anyway, if you want to see what this looks like as a finished product, then join me on the next video, which will be the final part in the series. And I'm going to have to crack on with it, regardless of my back, because I've got 4 days left before my new job starts. Thank you so much for watching. Take care. Bye-bye.